We talked about receivers. We talked about the prototype Julio, tall, big, strong, can run. I think Carson Wentz, quarterback-wise, is a prototype. 6'4", 6'5", right. Big, strong, athletic, can run, can use his feet to get out the pocket, has great pocket presence, has arm talent. He does all those things great. Same thing as Tom Brady. The big difference is his understanding that I mean more to this team than a couple more yards. I mean more to this team than holding on to the ball to throw the ball down the field. Tom Brady understands it. The Patriots ship goes because of Tom Brady. That's the big difference. The other thing is that there are levels to this. Carson Wentz has never played in the playoffs. He's trying to fight to play 16 regular season games. Tom Brady, we're not talking about getting into the playoffs. We're talking about getting home field advantage so that we can play in the Super Bowl. Carson Wentz, there's levels to it. He hasn't reached the level that he's consistently playing in the playoffs or even playing in the playoffs so he can compete for a Super Bowl. This year is going to be huge for him.
And there's the other element, which is where Brady has excelled seemingly from the moment he took over from Drew Bledsoe, which is being a galvanizing force within the locker room, and even as he's gotten older, learning how to connect, which is, I imagine, very difficult at this point in his career. He turns 42 tomorrow. As a guy that is in middle age, not just football middle age, but real life middle age, in a locker room full of guys, the majority of whom are 26 and under, connecting with them, not feeling above them or beyond them, even though he's the most famous football player in the world, one of the wealthiest professional football players of all time. All these reasons that he would have to be separated from his teammates, he stays connected. The stories coming out of Philly after the end of last season was that that is something Carson struggled with to a degree, and even if they were overblown somewhat, they didn't seem to be made up out of whole cloth, because Carson has said, I need to improve on some things. We've had some other guys, even in defending him, acknowledge there was some truth to it. So for Carson, there is what you're talking about, which is, yeah, it's great to be compared to Brady. One guy's been in 9 Super Bowls. The other guy hasn't played in a single playoff game. But there's also the making sure just because you're the number 2 pick of the draft, by the way, those team issues, whatever they were, that was before he got a $128 million contract, which could create more separation, making sure within the locker room you can be one of the guys, which I know is tough for a lot of quarterbacks, but when you're a young player and when there is the, man, this group of people did win a Super Bowl with your backup, there is that extra bridge, extra gap he has to bridge.
Chris, how much of that do you think has helped that Nick Foles is no longer there? That now it's pretty understood that he is the guy and he's going to be the guy and there's no one looking over his shoulder?
I mean, look, I think that was the feeling anyway. I mean, obviously they had a lot of love for Nick Foles. He led them to the Super Bowl. They built a shrine to him and all that. But I think everybody felt like Carson is the guy, and so that wasn't a big deal. But the thing is, look, correct me if I'm wrong, the context of Peter King's quote about looking Brady-esque was physically. Right? He said he lost some weight. Yeah. He's changed his nutrition, his training. That's where the comparisons end for me, because they're 2 different type of quarterbacks. Look, I think Carson Wentz is physically more gifted than Tom Brady, but the intangibles, what both of you mentioned, those are the things. That's how Brady excels with the intangibles, and Wentz is going to excel physically. Now, I expect Wentz to have a phenomenal year. If he doesn't, something's wrong. With all the weapons that they have at receiver, they got a bunch of running backs. He should have a huge year. The question is, does he have those intangibles? Can he be the leader of men and galvanize the locker room like a Tom Brady has done? That's what I'm not so sure about, and that'll show up in the playoffs.
I think when drafting Carson Wentz, everyone in the Eagles organization believed that he has those intangibles. They think he can develop into that. Tom Brady obviously was a mature guy when he came into the league, but he was humble because he was drafted late. Carson Wentz, expectations were high. He has to do a better job of, you're right, leading men. He has to do a better job of getting the locker room behind him and winning and staying healthy. Those are the biggest things for him.
Now, when he was a rookie, remember there were all types of stories about how all the players loved him. He was getting guys baptized and all that stuff. And then lately we saw these other stories that painted a whole different picture. What is the truth?
Well, I think that Carson, as a young man, probably could have been a little bit more personable, could have been a little bit more giving of his time, could have listened to some veterans a little bit more. But you're also talking about a guy, and I experienced it in my career because I was injured a lot too. When you're dealing with injuries, your sole focus is getting better for yourself. Your sole focus is trying to make sure that you're available for your team. And sometimes that comes off in a bad way, especially when you're in that position. And the quarterback position is different than a running back. I was focused on winning and trying to help help my team. When you're hurt and spending hours and hours and hours in the training room, it doesn't help you. Unfortunately, Carson has done that.
And in Carson's defense, what we saw publicly on the sideline when he was in the box or on the sideline, when Foles was going on the magical run, and then even last year when Foles took over and they start winning and Carson's down there, they win the playoff game on the double doink. Carson publicly presented a great face. Yeah. It could have been a much bigger distraction if there was a single shot of Carson pouting, if they catch him having a very human reaction, particularly last year when it's like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is happening again?
Yeah.
Now, you said something at the beginning I just want to circle back to quickly, which is recognizing I am more important than this first down. So when he almost won that MVP, so many of his highlights were not clean pocket, drop back, perfect pass. It was a broken play, scramble to the side, avoid a hit, throw across my body. It was making big plays with his legs, putting himself in jeopardy and avoiding the big shot and then making the play. Do you think he can reach that level of excellence playing a safer brand of football, or is it part and parcel for who he is, that in order to get the best Carson Wentz, he's going to be putting himself in jeopardy the way he did in 2017?
Well, I think part of his maturity going into his first year is all about him being smarter, all about him making better decisions. Now, I'm not going to say he's going to do that 100% of the time, but if he can get 50% better, that allows him to play in the playoffs. If he can just do a little bit better than what he was doing before, now he's not taking those extra shots after the whistle before he throws the football. He doesn't have to do that. This team doesn't need for him to do that. Really what this team needs, because they have so much talent around him, is for him to get the ball out of his hands, make the right decisions, get the right audibles in at the line of scrimmage. If he can do that, this team can win.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.